All right.
Jason's my new buddy. We spent time in the basement together. That's not a euphemism.
It might be.
Spent time in the basement together.
We bonded.
We bonded in the basement.
There's
Sounds bad no matter how you say it.
Can we give it up one more time for Rob and that performance?
And Matt Beck.
Absolutely. The cool thing for me watching that in the back over there, tucked away in the corner, was just seeing all of the people here mouthing along to every word. I don't. Is that something that you notice, like when you're when you're performing? Do you see people singing along to songs that you wrote 25 years ago, songs that came out a month ago?
Yeah, actually, yeah. And I notice if you don't.
He's taking names.
No, I mean, you know, it is like the coolest thing about if you're fortunate enough to have any kind of success over a period of time. And by success, I just mean being able to keep your job, being able to do this. You know, is that you realize that those songs they don't just exist here when we're hanging out and when you guys come to a show or something like that. You find out that they're like a part of everybody's life. Like they're a part of their Saturday nights and their Sunday mornings, and they're a part of love, and they're a part of loss, and they're a part of good and bad times. And so those moments, I think, when you get together with somebody who's been around and people who've been around through the whole thing, that's I think what I feel is I kind of feel that energy of like everyone has a moment that some song might connect with them in a different way than the person next to them does.
Yeah. And you talk about keeping your job. You've sold 18 million albums between Matchbox and your solo stuff. One of the most successful songwriters of all time. And yeah, give it up for that. That's awesome. I'll mention it because I know you won't. So we were talking upstairs. It's album eve for you right now. Album Chip 2 Smile comes out tomorrow. Since we last spoke, which was about a month ago, more songs have come out. People have been reacting to them. What has been your experience sharing these songs so far, anticipating sharing the whole album tomorrow? What are the past few weeks been like for you?
I love that. Like when the single came out, I love that I've been getting like peripheral things. Like getting stuff like Howard Stern's wife falling in love with my song, and then getting like Carlos to write me, and just be like, this is positive. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my musician friends writing me and songwriters. I think now it's this point where I really am excited about everybody hearing everything in context, right? Like, not everybody in the world, but I feel like the people in this room are people who are inclined to wait, and they're going to sit down from 1 to 12 and kind of go through the whole journey, because there is a journey there. There's ups and downs, there's peaks and valleys, and so I'm excited about everyone hearing these 3 songs, as they kind of heard them. But they're kind of like watching a musical, and before you go see the musical, you heard like 3 cuts from the musical, like from different parts of the show, and you don't know how it all kind of comes together. So I'm excited about everybody like hearing, the entirety of it.
You as part of this event for Songcake Live, you let fans vote on the set list. You played songs that were most requested. One of the most requested was the song you played last, One Less Day, Dying Young. We talked about this a little bit, but just the fan reaction to that song specifically, and you talked about how people have shared their stories with you. How gratifying has that experience been?
Well, again, I think it goes to show that it's a little deeper. Like, there's the mechanics of a music business, right? And there's the mechanics of a music career, which is like, they're pretty supply side. And if I do well and people buy it, then I get to keep doing it, that kind of thing. Right. And then there's this whole other side that's way deeper than that. And it goes way deeper, and I understand it because I've bought records, and I have a relationship with music, and that relationship is deeper than that. And these songs are a part of my life, and so it's cool that you could be that to someone else. And a song like this, it's about more than losing your girlfriend, I think a song like that, and everybody kind of has that, everybody always has that thought about that inevitable door at the end of the hallway, you know what I mean? That nobody wants to talk about it. We amuse ourselves out of, and we do everything we can so we don't have to think about it. But I think sometimes when you think about it, you really appreciate today, and you appreciate tomorrow, and you appreciate every day you get because of that. And I think a lot of people are kind of resonating with that. Who is that? I want to talk to them.
I was laughing because you were talking about death and the inevitable door, and I just see everybody in the crowd being like smiling along, like yeah.
These are not
Growing
stupid.
up.
These are not stupid people. We all know. It's not like Game of Thrones. I didn't give you guys a fucking spoiler, right? Like you guys know. You know how it's gonna.
So before the album comes out, can you talk a little bit about how these songs came together, both in terms of the writing process as well as working with the amazing Butch Walker, who did a lot of this album?
I think I've been writing this record since the last solo tour, really. Maybe the first solo, like since I was touring for the last solo record. So I've been like over 3 or 4 years just compiling songs. So there's a whole group of songs that are out there that never made the record and will probably never see the light of day, and some maybe will in future years. But then it was about sitting with Butch, because I told everybody, I would do interviews, and they would say, so like, what are you doing next year? And I would go, I'm making a record with Butch Walker. And I never told Butch about it. I was just like, yeah, I'm making a... So I had this idea that if I just manifest destiny, right? If I just tell everybody enough times, he would have to do it, because then he's the asshole, right? And so I called him up, and I was like, I think we saw him, where was it? Matt just reminded me, we saw him at like Blythedale, and he was doing something with another artist, and I came in and I was like, oh, by the way, next year we're making a record together. But he's been a friend of mine for a long time. I've always admired him. I admire his aesthetic. I admire the way he goes about things. We share so many of the same friends, you know, like him and I have known each other since back when he was in a band called The Marvelous Three, like back in the early 90s. He's a great singer-songwriter in his own right, which is a challenge, I think, for me. Like, Matt Serletic is a great writer, and he's an amazing musician, an amazing producer, but there's something about just sitting with someone who, like, makes records that I admire and I'm jealous of, and, like, getting in a room with him and going, okay, well, here's all my songs, and him going, yeah, nope, yeah, nope, you know. But I think it was his meter. When you hire a producer, you're hiring their point of view.
Yeah.
And so I hired his point of view and his aesthetic, for lack of a better word. And I think that we knew immediately. Like, we started working on actually, I Love It. Pardon me. I Love It was the first song. I wrote that song with my son Mason. When he came over, he was visiting. We were in the studio and we wrote it, and I had it sitting for like 2 years as a demo, and it didn't have any lyrics, but it was exactly the way it is on the record, just with no lyrics. You know, it was just like, you're saying I'm out here, don't see no hair, and in another, you know, like,
yeah,
just kind of slurring, drunken and stuff. And that was my son. And then, weird story, so we got a call that the guys in the movie Deadpool 2 were looking for a song, and they reached out to see if I wanted to write a song, and I was like, I have a song. So I called Butch from like an airport in Orlando, and I was like, Butch, I'm going to send you a song. This is what we'll start with. Let's just do this. And I sent it to him, and the next day he sends me this track, like just as it is. And I went and I wrote the lyrics on the car ride from LaGuardia to my house. I was sat writing the lyrics on my laptop, and then I went and did them that night. Spoiler alert: did not make the film. I'm not bitter. I'm not okay with it. I'm somewhere in between bitter and okay with it. But it was a kickstart. So it got us off to a start, and we knew, like, I knew that I had one less day that I was really, really excited about. I wanted that on the record, and then we knew we had I Love It, and it was like, okay, everything in between that, like, those were our 2 poles to kind of work at.
Yeah. Just please know that I'm picturing you on your couch watching Deadpool 2 and shaking your fist at the screen.
I think every song.
I don't
like,
love it.
Like, every song could have been better. Could have been better. I mean, it was a good movie. It could have been better. I know about like 3 minutes that could have made that movie fucking shine.
Can you talk a little bit about when you're writing songs in general, either for this album or just in general, how it works? Do you ever have that moment of, oh, this could be better, I'm going to save this for Matchbox and see what the Matchbox guys think of this, or are you just completely locked into, I'm in solo mode, let's go, like, this is what this is?
No, it's not. It's never about solo or Matchbox. I'm writing
You're just
all
writing
the time, and then if it's Matchbox, any song, you know, now Matchbox is made up of a lot of songs from a lot of the guys in the band. Any song that I write that goes to Matchbox is just a diary of where I've been since the last time I wrote songs. Like I don't really think it out that way. And I can't imagine having the hubris to do something like that, because at the end of the day, like, I don't know what tomorrow is, you know. And I always say, and I mean this in the most uplifting way. I don't mean this in a gloomy way, but like, I don't want to die with my best songs in my pocket. So if I have a good song and I think it belongs somewhere and I want people to hear it, if I'm working on something, I'm going to get it out there and I want people to hear that song. And then it only inspires me to, if I get with Matchbox, I already have a built-in thing, because if I get with Matchbox, I've got to impress those guys, and they know everything about me. So I've got to come into a room with something, because Paul will look me in the eye and go, "That sucks." And he has on many occasions, and I think that's, you know, where that bar becomes. So I think you just write all the time, and then you just have songs to kind of choose from.
You a couple minutes ago you name dropped Carlos, as in Carlos Santana.
It's not name dropping if you just have it like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm impressed every time you do it. We were upstairs, you said Carlos. I was like, oh my God, he's talking about Carlos Santana. It's the 20th anniversary of Smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the 20th anniversary of Smooth.
Everybody in the room, take 1 second. Think about how old that makes you feel. Multiply that by 5, and that's how Carlos feels.
Can you talk a little bit about how integral he's been, not only in, you know, giving feedback for your more recent records, but just over the course of your career?
Well, first, I mean, when I first met him and we were strangers and we recorded this song together, and I think everything really kicked off because when we did Smooth, we did record it together. It wasn't like done across the miles. I went to San Francisco. I sat in a room with him and the band, and everything on there was live on the floor, you know. And then the next day, I sang my vocals and he did his guitar, and we spent 2 days just really getting to know each other. And then we wound up spending a lot of time together during, you know, the promotion of Smooth, and we kind of got each other. And I think I understood him for all that he was, and he understood me for all the deficits in between what I could be, you know. And I think he saw this kid who was like, I mean, at the time we had sold like 13 million records, so I thought I was a really big deal, and I wasn't. Like we were some guys that sold a lot of records for one record, and we bought the ticket to take the ride. We thought we were on the ride, but that was really just the entrance, you know. It's like when you go to the haunted house at Disney and you stand in the room and you think that's the ride, and you're like, oh, there's a whole other thing going on behind here. You just got to get through this. And he taught me the difference between being a famous musician and being a celebrity. He taught me the difference between, you know, that the only thing you control are your motives, your intention, and your purpose. And if you control those things, and those things are as pure as they can be, then everything is going to be what it is, and you can't control any of the outcome. And we've had that conversation many, many times, sober and drunk. And it's become, you know, him, also Clive Davis. Through, you know, that relationship with Clive Davis, Clive was like one of the first people to hear this record when it was done. And, you know, having those two guys who are just mountains in the industry has been a really big thing. Like I have a good group of people. I have Michael Littman's my manager. Has been for 20 years. He's a legend in the business. I've got, give it up. I have Julie Greenwald, you know, the president of Atlantic. I have Pete Gamberg, who actually, it's funny, Pete was the head of A&R at Arista when we did Smooth. He put that whole Supernatural record together, and now years later, he's the head of A&R here in Atlantic, and we're working together again. Like, I just have a very good group of people to lean on, and a lot of that came from that relationship.
Which is amazing, and you know, 20 years later, you know, the song obviously still resonates, one of the biggest hits of all time.
Yeah, Carlos, just literally last night I was in the city doing a bunch of promo, and as I'm driving back, I'm getting this text because he's listening to the new song, and he's just like, brother. It's like, he's like, you know, it's so easy to be crass. You know, it's so easy to be cynical. He's like, but man, to show love, that's big.
Well, speaking of showing love, I want to get to the fan questions in a second. My last question for you is, as part of this Songkick experience, we have a bunch of super fans in the building today. You know, what is that? If you can talk a little bit about that support of years and years of support over multiple projects, over multiple eras, and of your life and of your career, what that support means to you.
I think one of the biggest things about it, I mean, we look out and we know each other. But I think the biggest thing is the ability to, like, I mean, it's a long road, musically and otherwise, from 3 a.m. and to Lonely No More.